I've been with Cisco for ages, and for 5 years, I've struggled to find a decent video that actually portrays Cisco security. 5 years, and it's been terrible. So they finally released one, so I'm actually going to entertain you guys with a video to start off with, and hopefully all the sound works.
It's 1 a.m. and you're still awake. You're worried about a wide-scale breach. That day, your CEO asked you, "Are we secure?" And you struggled to answer. Secure? How can you ever be secure? You're working with a security Frankenstructure that fits together like ice cream and anchovies. Ugh, disgusting. Legacy hardware, new cloud apps, personal mobile devices, IoT. Secure? You just need to be effective to compress the time between detection and remediation. But how? Well, start with automation, and response times plummet faster than this ballsy guy doing a free fall from the stratosphere. With Cisco, you can detect malware on a remote laptop and block it across all your networks instantly. Then you have to open up the APIs. You're not facing a threat. You're facing a threat landscape. It's huge and complex, and it's too much for any single vendor. Open architecture lets you snap in technology that solves your problems on the go. Changes come fast. You better move faster. You can't stop every attack. No one can. Try asking a seal to stop a shark attack. Nah, lights out, seal. That shark is still going to attack. But what if you teach the seal how the shark thinks, where it hunts, where its kids go to school? Then the seal has the advantage. Cisco looks at all the telemetry from DNS, malware, web and email, and studies the attacker's infrastructure. Then they turn that data into intelligence. They see a staggering number of attacks every month, and they respond in real time, anytime. Imagine if you crossed a bear with a cheetah and gave him the eyes of an eagle. Then you taught him to play hockey. Good luck scoring on that guy. And finally, make it simple. Distill innovation down to its concentrated essence, like a fine perfume. Cisco gets that, the same way a rocket scientist gets propulsion or a pizza maker gets dough. They built the network. They became experts in scale and visibility. And now, well, no big deal. They're just building the most effective security architecture on the planet, which means you don't need warm milk or sleeping pills to get a good night's sleep.
One of the interesting things is what is malware? Because a lot of people don't know, and actually, I'm at Cisco, so I actually live in the world of 3-letter and 4-letter acronyms. But malware in general, for me, malware has to be something that can execute. It has to be executable code. So that could be anything from a JavaScript embedded in a PDF. There you go, I'm into my 3-letter acronyms already. It could be an MSI file, it could be an MSXE or whatever else, an executable. Again, lots of acronyms there. It's just got to be something that can run. Even if I go and attack your system, and I get control of it through using what I call an exploit, by leveraging a vulnerability, I'm still going to put software on his system. It could be anything from what I call a remote access Trojan. What that means is I'm just going to try and come back and control your system, and I can come back anytime I want. It could be ransomware, where I'm actually going to go and encrypt your system, and I'm going to ask you for some money. Actually, ransomware is really, really interesting for me. I find ransomware, dare I say it, almost something that's useful for our industry, albeit it's a pain in the proverbial for actually having to deal with it. Ransomware is one of the things that we don't really understand the scope of malware in our organization. I'm just taking a little tangent here. Do you guys know how much volume of the full malware total that ransomware actually is? It's as little as 2%. But the ransomware is the stuff that's going to tell you that it's just hacked your system. And it's going to say, hey man, I've just encrypted your disk and you're going to have to give me $300 US in Bitcoin. So it tells you that. The other 98% of malware is not going to. It's going to sit there and it's going to watch your keystrokes. It's going to look to get privilege escalation. It's going to look at all these tricks to actually go and control the information that you've got and not tell you about it. So when people get attacked or breached, there's this thing called the time to detection, time of compromise to time of detection. It was actually in the video as well. At the moment, it's averaging 100 plus days. You guys get breached, you don't even know it's there. Hopefully, you actually find out about it. And more often than not, I'm going to do a talk this afternoon, and I'm going to take a look into a paper called the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report, which actually looks at about 3,000 individual breaches, and they pull out all the statistics and learning from that, from real-world breaches. So if you're interested, come and see me this afternoon. It's actually from that particular presentation. And what they're saying is that actually it's getting worse, not better. We need these two lines. This is the time to breach, and this is the time to detection, and the gap is getting wider and wider, which is actually not a good place to be. So, I have an interesting discussion with a lot of people, and a lot of people say, well, I just need to buy a new firewall. I need a next generation firewall. I need something that's application aware. I need something that understands who the users are. And it's, absolutely you do. That's actually just table stakes. But not every security problem can be solved with a firewall, let alone that's what the industry does. And by the way, I sell a lot of firewalls as well. But we need to work out why we can't solve it with a firewall. And we have a thing within the security industry called the defense in depth strategy. You guys understand defense in depth? Yeah. I'm going to put multiple layers of defense in play. And what happens is most of these defense in depth tools make a binary decision. It's either good or it's bad. And if it's bad, I'm going to block it. And I'm going to walk you through a couple. So the first line of defense, firewall. In the layer 3 model, it's going to make a decision. It's binary. Am I allowed to allow the traffic through, or do I block it? And if I allow the traffic, I'm now going to hand it off to the next layer. Let's say an intrusion prevention system. A generation 1 intrusion prevention system is going to have a big long list of signatures, and if one of those signatures match, it's going to block the file or block the attack. Otherwise, it's going to let it go. It's going to hand it to the next layer in our defense in depth strategy model. Probably the final one is probably local antivirus. And antivirus, again, is a signature-based approach. So if we've never seen this file before, we don't even know what it is, and it gets to your desktop, the antivirus is going to go, no, it's not part of the bad list. You can run it. This is why, at the moment, we're seeing ransomware hit desktops, even though they have firewalls, they have IPS, they have antivirus. It's just walking straight through our defense in depth strategy. But that's supposed to be the pinnacle of how we manage security. And unfortunately, it's kind of broken at the moment. I don't have a fallback, which is a bit tough. So I'm having to read the slides behind me, so just work with me, guys. So one of the things we need to do is we need to focus on the threat itself. And how do we look at providing effectively a systemic approach to dealing with threat? So what do I mean by threat? We may have vulnerabilities. I'm going to give you an example. Who uses an iPhone or iDevice? Yeah, about half the room. Have you guys all upgraded to 9.3.1? If you haven't, go home tonight, or preferably this afternoon, and upgrade to 9.3.1. When they patched that particular version, they actually closed a whole lot of what we call remote code execution vulnerabilities. What that means is if I can trigger that vulnerability, I can run arbitrary code on your phone, or your tablet, or whatever else you use, iPad. So what we want to do is we want to understand that vulnerability. But like I said, I have to have a threat vector to allow me to actually leverage that vulnerability. The vulnerability exists, we know it, Apple actually published it. Now I've got to work out how I can actually use that. And that's the threat that I'm talking about. It's how am I going to exploit or use that vulnerability to get control of the system. What we need to do is we need to actually take a holistic approach to that. And we've all got these kinds of systems, right? Most of us have got some of these things. We've all got firewalls here. Most of us have got sort of email and web controls. Again, email here, a bit of a change in the way we deal with email now. Email for me, 5 years ago even, was all about spam. How do we stop spam and get rid of that out of the way? Actually, email now is more relevant in your protection profile than pretty much everything else with regards to malware, because this is how I'm going to attack you. Again, this afternoon I'm going to talk about the statistics involved with email threats versus web threats, etc. Web, endpoint protection, you've got antivirus, those sorts of things. I call it CWS, but this is cloud-based technologies that are providing security. And even if I can do it on the router, can I actually embed some technology in the router? Well, what Cisco's gone and done is said, well, we have to. We're going to put this thing called Advanced Malware Protection, AMP, and we're going to put it everywhere we can in the network. We've got to learn not only from the network perspective, but also from the endpoint. What does AMP do? Well, as I mentioned, malware is about files. So AMP is going to go and examine every single file that is going to come into your network. It's going to go, hey, is it executable? Yes, it is. Right, well, I'm going to go and check something. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pass it up to this thing called the AMP cloud. So this is a cloud service. Globally, everyone plugs into this and shares this intelligence. I'm going to check that file and say, hey, I'm going to create what's called a SHA-256, basically a unique identifier, and I'm going to go, hey, cloud, have we ever seen this file anywhere in the world before? And it's going to come back and say, yes, we have, and actually it's good. Hey, you downloaded something from Cisco.com, it's all good. It might come back and go, whoa, no, it's actually bad. This is is Tesla Crypt or Crypto Wall or some other Zbot or some other nasty bit of code. And that's cool. We've now instigated our defense in depth strategy. There's my binary decision. It's good or it's bad. What if we don't know what it is? I have no idea. Well, if I was in a defense in depth mode, I would pass that to the next layer. Right? I don't want to do that. Right? We've got to change the way we do this model. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go, well, I need to work out what this is, and I'm going to track this file everywhere it goes in my network. I'm going to keep an eye on it. And this is whether I know whether it's good or bad. I'm going to actually track every file in the network from now on, because that's where malware is. It has to hide in the files. What I'm going to do while I track that file is I'm going to actually send it up to a sandbox. Now, we all do a sandbox. A lot of my competitors out there, we provide a sandbox. What's different about sandboxing? Well, again, sandboxing can be part of your defense in depth strategy. The sandbox will run the file, boom, what we call it actually detonating the file. This is probably good for you guys down here, detonations. So I'm going to detonate the file, I'm going to work out what it does, and I'm going to hit it's good or bad. I'm still in that binary world. So why don't we actually stick on a database to this whole thing? Which again is different to what our competitors do. With that database, and what we've actually done with our sandbox technology is we have tracked and maintained a record of every single malware we have detonated for the last 7 years. Because that's how long we've had we've been using ThreatGrid before. ThreatGrid tracks 497 behavioral indicators of compromise. So what that means is when we detonate a file, we watch what it does. We have almost 500 different variables that we actually track on that, and we track everything else it does. Who's it talking to on DNS? What's its HTTP GET request that it's actually trying to do? What else is it doing? What registry settings does it try to change? Does it download any other files? All of that intelligence, we stick in a big fat database. And we actually data mine all of that as we go through this detonation of this file. Hey, this has got the same administrative contact as all these other malware samples. Based on that, I'm going to weight this as it's looking suspicious. It's talking to the same name servers when it talks out to the internet. Again, I'm going to weight that as looking actually really suspicious. So I'm going to add all these together as I work that through. We also have an internal team inside Cisco called Talos, which is actually our security research team. It's the best part of about 500 to 600 odd people in this, and they are just going around hacking into stuff that they're allowed to, of course, doing security research, tying all these threat feeds together, and then pumping threat intelligence into our sandbox technology. But after about 7 to 8 minutes, we've actually detonated this file. We've worked out what this file does. We actually pass that information back to the ANT cloud, and we go, actually, it's a bad file. We need to block it. So the question is, we've let this file in because it was unknown before, so where is it? So we're actually going to do what we call a retrospective analysis. And for me, the good thing is that no one else in the industry is able to do this today. I don't know, they're probably trying to copy us at the moment. But I'm going to go query all of these devices and systems here and go, hey, did you let this file in? And if you have, where is it? Where's it gone? And I'm going to show you the screenshot that actually shows us how we've tracked the file from what we call patient 0 as it's propagated through the network. And I'm going to go and say, all of you guys, start blocking that file and tell me where it is in the network so I can go and actually put some more controls around that. That is systemic response to a threat. We also have another technology that I'm going to mention briefly called Identity Services Engine. You probably haven't heard of this. Identity Services Engine is what we call a AAA. It's an authentication, authorization, and audit system for how do you get on the network. It's going to basically say, I call it a gatekeeper. It's going to decide whether you're allowed on the network or not, and what you're allowed to do. That's as simple as it gets. If we realize that you're actually doing some bad stuff on the network, well, I'm going to get you off the network. That's the simplest form. I might actually put you in a remediation VLAN, I might move you around and protect the assets that I've got, but I can actually do anything I want with you dynamically. I'm also going to, I've got the ability to actually share this intelligence with stuff like DNS. And we actually deliberately went and acquired an organization called OpenDNS last year in about August. It's the largest DNS provider in the world. It's in every single global internet peering node. And what we can actually do is go, you're being attacked by a particular malware at the moment. And if you're using OpenDNS, we're actually going to push that intelligence into that and stop you from going to all the DNS entries that are part of that malware attack. That's cool. That's systemic response. That means even mobile devices that are using the DNS system can actually be protected from a particular threat that you're dealing with. We're going to pump that out into forensics tools. And we actually have a lot of our partners that have chosen this model to deliver that as actually a security forensics tool and to do incident response. I'm actually going to show you some screenshots on an incident response we did for a large Australian hospital back in January. And the other thing is I can correlate all this information. I can share it with other third parties to have seen. The core aspect here with a systemic response is that I'm getting file metadata up here, because the trouble with sandboxing technologies, and as I say, there's some of my competitors out there that are talking about sandboxing, how great it is. A sandbox is only as effective as how you feed it. If you can't send files, or you don't capture the files, every file, and give it to the sandbox, it's not effective. Okay, I can get past it. Same with an IPS. If you don't feed and water it and tune it, it's not going to do a decent job. And the whole idea is to actually leverage threat intelligence and pass that into the network. So, guys, your phone isn't ringing. You have no idea you've been hacked. But I'm going to flip that around. Say your phone rings. It's your IT manager or someone else, or it's even someone going, oh my God, I've got one of these screens. What do I do? You're laughing because it happens, right? So you've been notified. You've had some sort of breach. In this case, it's fairly straightforward. It's ransomware. Do you guys have a policy or a security playbook that says, what do I do if someone in my organization sees this screen? Because it's just encrypted the hard disk, and now it's asking for $300 in Bitcoin. Using a RSA 2048 thing, it's crypto locker as a particular variant here. What do I do? Well, hopefully you've got decent backup. The worst organization I've dealt with actually realized that their backups, they've been copying the same corrupt backup for 2 years, and realized that their backups were basically useless. What do you do? Well, in this particular incident, or for that particular customer, they actually ended up paying the ransom, which is, again, nothing I advocate, but at the end of the day, it's your business and it's your data. Just realize that if you do pay the ransom, you've got to assume that you've been compromised, and that there's probably other malware inside your organization, and you need to go and actually flush that out. But that said, you've got to keep running, you've got to keep managing the business. So, what do you do? What happened? How did it get in? What devices were impacted? Who else is vulnerable? Where did it get in from? Who was patient zero? What is it doing? This is really simple in that example. It's crypto locker, and it's gone and encrypted the hard disk. But what if I don't know what it does? Why didn't AV stop it? Can we block it from propagating? Those are simple questions about what do you do next. And you need a strategy to be able to manage an incident. So, let me show you what happened in the Australian hospital. What is it? What did it do? So this is actually our view of what's actually executing on the endpoint. So this is us on the desktop watching the malware do some weird stuff. We've actually seen here, this is a list of services. These are the executables that we'd expect to see in a Windows machine. It was a Windows host, obviously. It's running services.exe. We've got Chrome, and we've got service hosts and Explorer. Typical stuff we see. We've got a bit of a red line here. This looks a bit odd. Don't really expect to see that. And we can see here in services, we've actually got an incoming connection from an external address, this port, to services.exe. So don't really know what's going on, but that looks like something's entered the network because it's triggering something here. I've actually got here an add, so a file's been added. Now at the moment in the hospital, because we were dealing with an incident response, we were in audit mode only, right? You do no harm when you're doing incident response. You try not to impact any of the evidence as you're running through that. So hence, you'll see nothing quarantined here. But I'm trying to work out what that is. Okay, so yeah, well, I've got a file here. Well, actually that file we've actually seen before, because we've gone and had a look at the threat grid database. Threat grid's actually said, this is a Win32, something weird file, and threat grid, TG, has run it in the sandbox, and it's classed it as a threat score of 100. We consider anything over 95 as 100% guaranteed malicious. Get it out of your network. It's a bad thing to have. So in this case, it's considered a 100. So we're going to have a look at it here. So this is it's added files, and it's trying to go and executable. It's actually created a new file, and it's running the system. That's not good. Thank you. What we're also seeing is Explorer, because we're trying to work out what this thing does. It's gone and started triggering Explorer. Well, Explorer, that's okay. You know, most of us use Windows Explorer. But when we dig into it, we see that Explorer, for some reason, has got an outgoing connection from Explorer to these external addresses, and it's talking to google.com. Why would my malware talk to Google? Maybe it's just checking to see if it's got internet connectivity, right? We all do that, right? We just try to point at google.com. Maybe that's what's happening. Actually, when we look at what happens next, we see that we've got this really weird URL. There's a thing called a DGA, a domain generation algorithm. This is what a lot of malware uses today. What does it do? Well, we dynamically create a URL to go and pass information to what we call the command and control server, the guy that's actually controlling the threat actor. So if we go back to this one, we've actually worked out that they're not talking to Google to test internet connectivity. They're going to Google to get a timestamp when we actually dig into the actual PCAP analysis. They're getting a timestamp, and they're using the timestamp from Google to dynamically generate this URL. How do you defend against that? They're dynamically generating URLs to talk to the command and control. We've actually seen another malware sample that uses the spot price of copper. Yeah, I'm timestamping. I'm going to check the spot price of copper. I'm going to use that information to generate an algorithm, put that into my algorithm, generate a URL. I'm going to generate the URL at the other end, and I'm now going to pass that traffic. Almost impossible to stop. When you've got a database of all these DGAs, you can actually start to do something about it. So this is actually our threat score report for this particular file. Right, we've got a quack box here, we've got a bunch of stuff. We're getting 100% confident that this is a security issue. And there's a whole lot of what we call indicators of compromise. It's got a DNS response contains a low time to live value. Suspicious, but it's not an attack. This stuff is all the bad stuff up here. But all of this stuff adds together to say, hey, this is looking more and more suspicious. This is what I mean. We have almost 500 of these indicators of compromise to determine whether it's a bad file. We also go and examine this. Again, this was from an incident back in January of all the HTTP traffic that this particular malware is using. That's a lot of traffic for one particular malware variant. I can also see all the DNS entries. You have a look here, I think that's the file there, the GDF something, and a ton of DNS. Why is this talking to so much DNS? Well, it's using that DNS obfuscation technique, so it's really hard to find out what it's talking to. But this is the information that we've actually stored, and we're cross-correlating with that. Has any other malware variant talked to any of these DNS entries? And I'm dynamically adding that to OpenDNS to block people to go to that. So how did it get in and where did it go? Because that's why I've changed my talk to be a little bit more of an investigation talk rather than just talking about malware. So in this instance, now I'm going to change from what's it executing, what has it done? Right? It's gone and done data exfiltration, and we've worked that out, how it's doing it. We're actually looking at what's called a network file trajectory. I'm trying to work out how did it get in. And it's actually here, this is patient 0. I can actually see it's first seen in our network on that particular IP address at that date and time. The reason I'm using a 2013 example here is that I've got a thing that I'm going to talk about called a retrospective alert, and that when you can't actually do those live, so I have to use a diagram to do that. Because once it's actually triggered, you'll never see it again. And here's the entry. This is where it's come in. It's actually going to pass it to another IP address. It's going to hack another box. The malware has then, over a little bit later, on the second box, has actually tried to attack this box and this box. And like I said, the disposition is unknown. I've never seen this file before. Like when I saw that, it's either good, it's bad, or it's unknown. At the moment, I'm tracking this as an unknown. and actually define it there. This is an unknown file present on this IP address. It is then passed down to another IP address, which then propagates further. So I'm seeing this thing propagate through my network. I don't know if you saw that there, but this one transferred through Firefox. I think it was Firefox. Now I'm in the network, I'm actually using NetBIOS and SMB connections. So the malware is smart enough to change its vector inside the network. This is what these guys are doing. There's some smart cookies that build this. What we've done is we've realized a few hours later through our security research team that actually this is a bad file. And we've actually gone and told everyone through the AMP cloud that connects to it, this is a bad file, you need to get rid of this out of the network. We've actually instigated what's called a retrospective alert. That's why all four of them have hit at the same time. These are the files that are on your systems, these are the systems that you've got, and it's bad, you need to go and sort this out. We also see here, oops, this little guy here has got a little padlock, and he's actually been quarantined already. So he had some of that endpoint software that we used to do that first analysis, and he's going, hey, thanks for telling me this is bad. I'm now going to quarantine this file. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to get rid of it and keep myself clean. So that's all good. In this case, Windows Media Installer, because we've put this alert in place, actually at the IPS level, we're now blocking all outbound communication to the command and control. The threat actor realizes this and says, well, actually, I need to reinfect the system. And he has another go, but it's actually got a little line under it that says it's been blocked. So we're now blocking any further infection from this particular threat vector. So now we know where it is and what it is. How can I systemically block that? I mentioned that open DNS entry, and here's my GDF example. So I've actually gone for a search in that when that actually hit. Again, this is a live example from that hospital in Australia. And we pumped it into OpenDNS, and OpenDNS says, hey, I already know about this. I've known about this for ages. It's a bad address. We can't block it. It's a fast flux domain. It has suspicious ASN scores. Again, lots of three-letter acronyms. Don't worry about that. But we already know what it is, and we're going to just keep blocking it for you. So that's cool. That's actually sharing threat intelligence beyond just updating a firewall. So what can we actually learn from this incident? Well, one of the things is that we went and then analysed all of those DNS entries to look at how this incident has occurred. And like I said, it actually kicked off on the 21st of January. We saw a whole lot of peaky stuff going on, and we got involved here on about the 28th when we realised that this was an incident. So the guy got into the network and was sitting there very slowly, exfiltrating data. He was basically what we call moving laterally within the organisation, infecting machine after machine after machine without being detected. We got involved here, and then all of a sudden it ramped right up. Lots of DNS activity, and he was mutating the virus quicker than the antivirus guys could keep up. Actually, we had a well-known antivirus vendor. They were doing a great job. They were coming in and they were actually providing signature updates for this particular threat within 4 hours, and we could push it out to all of their AV. He realized this, and this is why there's so many differences here. He was mutating it every 40 minutes. So your AV vendor just cannot keep up. AV is broken in this defense in depth strategy. We were finding out what's happening within 7 minutes and applying those controls and blocking that DNS. And boom, we were all passive here, and then we killed the whole threat. This is what it actually looked like when we analyzed what the malware was doing. This is us, this is the hospital, and this was the threat actor, and all of the red dots are actually all of the malicious DNS or websites that were being used to control this software. And we're actually able to go and revisualize that information. This is, I think this is my last slide. We've focused always here for many, many years. It's about blocking threats. It's about how strong can we make the walls of our defense and our defense thing. And we kind of do a little bit of talking about how we actually detect it when something happens and actually go and remediate it. This is what we have to do here. We have to do exactly the same volume of work here, but we have to focus on how do we deal with before and after. And I've just shown you that your defense in depth strategy is somewhat broken. That we're going to get through the firewall, and I don't care whose firewall it is, whether it's a Cisco firewall, anyone else in that room, I can get through the firewall with malware. how do you deal with it after the fact? Nothing is 100% secure. So it's changing how you do defense in depth. And now it's a threat intelligence model. Guys, Cisco worked very hard, and we use these technologies internally. We have taken that initial statistic I showed you of 100 average days, and we can turn around a response to any threat to Cisco's own enterprise network within 17 hours as an industry average, or as an average for us. That's incredible compared to what the industry is doing. Thank you very much. We can actually, with the Comstor team, we can actually come and provide a security assessment for you guys. We can actually drop this technology into your network and show you everything that's going on. Come and talk to the guys on the stand, do a security assessment with the team. It's extremely powerful. I've even got some partners in the room here that can actually do that as well here locally. Make sure you go take some backups. Backups. Go test your backup and upgrade from 9.3.1 and whatever the latest Android is. Patch. And that's what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. Guys, thank you very much for your time. I think I'm about a minute over. So any questions?